Hey sis, how are you? We're back again, and we're here now with Councilman Quinton Lucas. So, hello and welcome to Convos with Candidates. I'm your host again, Cecilia Belser Patton, and we're excited to have Councilman Quinton Lucas here with us, joining us this evening. Thank you.
It's good to be with you. I'm happy to be with everybody watching as well.
Good. So we want you all to know that Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet is an organization dedicated to amplifying the voices and power of Black women. So through this education and advocacy, they can be effective advocates, activists for the issues that matter to them and the communities that they serve. So can we say that one more time? We want to increase ourselves to this Black girl magic that's out there everywhere so that we are amplifying our voices and our power in our communities. So, I don't see what that is, man. Thank you. I'm sorry, you all. I'm getting something, so I want to know what this is. So we will start first with some questions from me, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience and to Facebook Live. If you're a Kansas City voter, please hit the love button. If you have a question, post it in the comments. If your question doesn't get answered today, don't worry about it. The candidates are going to come back into the thread and they're going to answer the questions. We're going to try to get as many as we can in, and we just want to move forward with thanks and critical thought as we have this conversation with Councilman Lucas today. So before we begin this conversation, let's you start by introducing yourself, telling us why you are running for mayor, and telling us what has moved you to feel like that you can lead this tremendous city.
Right. You know, it's interesting. First of all, it's it's about 8:15 right now for those who are watching us live. And the funny thing is, I talk all the time, and sometimes it's important to listen. And part of what kind of pulled me into this campaign was to listen. To what I'm hearing from lots of different people in the community. You know, I'm not unique among the candidates who are saying that our focus for the next 4 years, for the next 8 years, needs to be more than airports, more than luxury buildings, more than downtown. It needs to be about how do we make quality of life better in Kansas City every day.
Absolutely.
How do we build up things so that the people that are working their tails off every day, and there are lots of people like that. I grew up with a mother like that, who was raising 3 children by herself, going to work every day, catching the bus. How can we make it so they can have even more opportunities in Kansas City, so they can better their own lives? For that person who may be in and out of the criminal justice system, who's trying to climb their way out, how can we have good economic and racial justice reform to make sure they have opportunities? Absolutely. And so, you know, I've been a person who's an idea person. I'm somebody who likes to say that when there's a challenge, how do we fix it? How do we rebuild a system, our rules, our policies to make Kansas City help poor people? How do we make Kansas City help our Black community? And how is it, 2 things that I really want to change more than anything else. One, when you look at crime in this city, the fact that we had almost the same number of homicides in 1993 that we had in 2018 is a problem. And then another thing that I look at sometimes, some of the neighborhoods I lived around when I was growing up, I was homeless for a minute, but also lived in some interesting spots. And one of the places was at 52nd and Bell Fountain. And one of the more interesting things is when I go
64128, right?
And when I go by like the corner now, I'm like, man, that raggedy house was sitting there back then. I don't know why it's still there. The neighborhood looks the same. If anything, we've just lost more houses. I want to rebuild that. Sure. So really for me, it's a time that I think is important. I think I have skills. I think I've learned collaboration. I think I've learned how to use the talents I have to try to help us get to yes. And that's, you know, what I'm trying to do.
Very good. Thank you. So we want you to accomplish these things on behalf of Black women voters.
That's right.
We know that oftentimes Black women voters carry our elections. And so with that in mind, we'd like for you to share your vision for Kansas City.
Yeah. You know, my vision for Kansas City, it's complex, but in some ways it's simple. You know, one, I want strong neighborhoods. And what do strong neighborhoods mean? It means that we take away our housing policy from the idea of demolition and luxury. You know, I don't want to see a bunch of Beacon Hills. No offense if you live there. If you got money like that, good for you. But what I want to see is neighborhoods where we're actually preserving housing stock, where we're helping people that want to stay in their neighborhoods have opportunities. And to the extent that we have infill opportunities, we're looking to build those for those families that are maybe renting right now, but are looking to get to home ownership. So we can build wealth in the Black community, so we can build wealth in the urban core of Kansas City. And I think that there is a way to do that. And the way you do that is by gearing our incentive policy and our housing policy away from large-scale development, and instead putting it into things like how are we helping those folks who are buying land bank lots right now actually have access to affordable and quality housing opportunities. So that's one step of what I want to do. Another step of what I want to do is make sure that I'm helping out education in the future of Kansas City. I am lucky. I am very, very lucky. Some people are like, brother, you worked hard. Like, no, I didn't, right? I had a mother that worked hard, and I had an outstanding education that allows me to sit here now, act like I'm fancy in this suit and all that sort of stuff. So to me, more than anything, I want to create an opportunity where we have a whole ecosystem that supports what our schools are doing each day. That means the city's involved through Parks and Rec and more activities. That we're actually helping people get involved in community activities from the time that they're young and when they're old. And so, yeah, I think everything I'm saying costs money. Sure. But what it's really about is that we reorient the money to the right things. So we're not spending money, $7 million to help the zoo do something, or we're not spending, all this money to help the plaza build up. What we're really trying to do now is actually try to improve our community, basic core quality of life every day. That's my vision long term for Kansas City.
Good, thank you. We already have some questions coming in. And
right.
So we really want to engage our Facebook Live viewers. Thank you. Keep posting, keep putting things in the comments. We're going to get to as many questions as we can, and we're going to give Councilman Lucas the opportunity to really expand his vision and his thoughts so that you know who he is in a different manner than you did when we started. So this question is from Amber. Hey sis, what role does the mayor's office play in addressing early childhood education?
Depends on the mayor, I guess. But, if it's slide, then you're trying to do the whole thing. Here's my shit. I do not support the current early childhood sales tax program. A lot of people have written the reasons for that, but there are a lot of them. One, every public school district's against it. Two, is the sales tax mean having the poorest people pay for it the best way to do it? Three, are you trying to set up a bureaucracy where you're paying for administrators and buildings and all of that in the first year rather than actual classroom teachers, right? Classroom opportunities. All those are flawed. So I think the answer for me really is that yes, the mayor plays a key role, but you got to work with people. Sure. I had a meeting, and I'll tell it to y'all because we're among friends.
Mr. Lucas is charming.
Okay. But, so I had a meeting with somebody in the mayor's office, and they were saying, well, I asked them, is this going to hit all the poor folks? The poorest people there, low-income folks, families that really need opportunities. And the answer was, well, 20% of people will always be left out of the program. And I'm like, well, damn, if you're in that 20%, if you're in that group that always is cut out, 20% of our city and of our community are those that often are excluded from programs, or don't know about opportunities, or don't avail themselves of opportunities. This program ain't the right way to do pre-K. I believe in pre-K. I believe in early childhood education. There is nothing keeping us from working with the school districts who every day are dealing with those that are of different economic means. There's nothing that's keeping us from saying, how do we craft a program that instead of thinking about, in essence, a voucher system from the top down, so that a nice family that's well-to-do living up in the Northland right now making $80,000 a year has access to the program in the same way that a poor family somewhere in the city has access. I don't like that. I have no problem with saying that this should be a program that starts with those who need access the most, who need opportunities the most. So I believe the mayor has a role. This just ain't the right way to do it.
Okay. So what is the role for you if you're elected mayor? What do you see happening? Because what I hear you saying is that some of our most disadvantaged, underserved community members will not automatically have a seat with this plan. So equity actually does not lie in the plan. Right. So how would you do something different?
Yeah, very simply. I think step one, you trust the educators who do it. I like Mark Bedell. If you don't know Mark Bedell, he's a good man, he's a strong man, he has a hell of a life story. And he is somebody who works his tail off every day for the best interest of the boys and girls in the Kansas City, Missouri School District, or the KC Public Schools, from the 80s.
Sure.
But, so my thought on that is that I need to be working with him. I need to be working with teachers. What I don't need to do is just sit with a bunch of businessmen and lawyers at the chamber downtown and then just say, hey, we've come up with a program and all of a sudden we care about black children. I'm sorry, I get colorful at night. But I'm like, what we need to do for real is say, no, we are working with the real community to come up with a plan. If you look at how this plan is crafted, it is top down, it's coming from different foundations, it's coming from the corporate world and all of that. God bless them for caring. But my thing is, you can't just care and try to change the world and do it your own way. You need to work with us. You need to work with our community. So more than anything, I'll use my creative juices to do more. But I'm going to make sure I'm working with the school districts, the educators, the people in the city right now.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to ask you one of these questions, and then we'll go to another question from our Facebook Live viewers. We want to thank you once again. Keep hanging in here with us. What are the 3 biggest issues that you think are facing Kansas City, and what immediate actions do you plan to take to tackle these issues in your first 90 days?
3 biggest issues facing Kansas City. Pretty simple. Housing, to me, is one of them. Crime, public safety is another. And then I think fairly simply, education. Even if the mayor doesn't run the educational system, those are going to be key. And I think as you look at how those all impact other areas like health, like infrastructure, it all relates. So let me start with those.
All the systems.
Right, exactly. But, starting one on housing. If you are building strong housing, right, you're building strong neighborhoods. Now, that's not just cliche. What I mean by that is to say that if you have a child who can have some stability, if you have families that are building stability, if you have families that are having an opportunity actually to move from rental to home ownership, so they actually have that wealth that so many people in other parts of our region are able to use for those loans that they're starting a business, right, or to help defray costs of college, anything like that, that's going to be key. So the first 90-day thing I want to do is actually have a bunch of housing policies now before the city council. Many of them speak to both major and minor home repair, because if you got a 90-year-old house, like many houses in the city, you can't fix it up for $1,000, right? You need 20, you need 30, you need 40, you need $50,000. I'd like to see us spending money on that. I think another thing that I want to see is to see us finally take off the vestiges of segregation era housing and zoning policy, which we do have. If you look at our zoning policy in Kansas City, we continue to use kind of these large setbacks. We're not allowing infill development. We're not allowing density and housing development like you see townhomes in other parts of America and in this region. And so my view is I'd like to change that immediately as I get into. On the crime issue, instead of just talking about community policing, which everybody's doing now, what I'd like to see is us reforming the justice system entirely. I've already put it out there. I plan to, if elected, pardon everybody who has a standalone municipal marijuana conviction. Because get how things are so messed up in America, right? So this city voted 75% 2 years ago, functionally to decriminalize marijuana, right? But we got how many brothers and sisters walking around right now with convictions on their record? And it's still there, right? And I don't care, even if you ban the box, right? They have to report it later. These are things that are following them. The mayor has an opportunity to do that, and that's something I'm doing from day one. And people always ask me, how does that affect crime? Well, if you've ever known anybody who's trying to climb their way out of trouble, frankly, right? You keep falling back because there are systems that are still after you, because you got warrants after you, got all those sorts of issues. And so I'd like to clear that almost immediately. And then finally, on the education side, like I was saying before, we have to work with our school districts, and not just KCPS, right? You need to go to Center, Grandview, Hickman, North Kansas City more often now, and actually say, how are we creating more opportunities for families in need, creating more opportunities for children to have access to quality health care too. I mean, in the schools, they're getting so much that we need to really work on those. So those will be my 3 issues of importance.
Very good, thank you. So, Sis Kimberly, hey sis, is asking, what are your ideas for improvements for East of Truth?
And I think everything I just said is about East of Truth, really. But I mean, I'll be, kind of even more on point. Actually, let me be more really, really on point with this, which is that folks need to stop just, there's some candidates right now, and I love everybody, don't get me wrong. But there's some who are trying to run on, we're gonna revitalize the East Side. I'm always like, what does that mean?
Exactly.
Right? I'm like, what you gonna do? Just drop some money somewhere and then what, build some like white elephant projects that we just drive by and we're like, that didn't fix us, right? Instead, what we need to do is fix core community issues. That is housing. That is investing actually in long-term healthcare and healthcare access, like we have at the YMCA on Linwood. I mean, it's that sort of work that you need to do to really fix up truths. Just putting $8 million in something that ain't nobody asking for will not get us anywhere. I've lived in Kansas City my entire life. We've had things get built occasionally. The problem is there isn't the collaboration with the community, there isn't the long-term follow-through. So to answer affirmatively what I'm doing, I'm investing in housing. I'll be investing in our neighborhoods. I want to invest in entrepreneurs and small business owners, not just big ticket projects. And more than anything, I will not say yes to a project simply saying, all right, yeah, this whole neighborhood seems gone. We're just going to build some giant thing that's going to change the face of it. Beacon Hill to me is a beautiful little development, but in many ways it's a tragedy. To me, to drive by every day, I live right up the street, to drive by a bunch of $600,000-$700,000 houses that are by a supermajority non-black owned. You know, I got nothing against the people who chose to live there, but when it's government that paid to do that, when it's government that's doing the gentrifying itself, that's a problem. And that's not what I want the East of Truth for the revitalization or whatever buzzwords that the newspaper and all those others are picking up on now. I don't want that. What I want is from the ground up redevelopment in our community, and we can do that.
I'm glad you're talking about that. I think many of our folks that are with us on Facebook Live might not know that Beacon Hill used to be one of the vestiges of Black middle class community here in Kansas City, and to see that shifting, I think really brings us to the question about gentrification. Like, how do we revitalize? How do we reinvest without displacing people that are already there? Do you have some ideas about that?
Yeah, you know, I've been getting more and more controversial every week. So as part of a long campaign, the first thing that you do is that you do not give massive incentives to non-community from the community developers to change up an entire neighborhood.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's crazy, right? That I've been living in East of Truth my whole life. A lot of us have. We don't get a multi-million-dollar, not only a tax break, but half the time the city's giving money to people because the developer can get the deal done. But then that developer's not really worrying about the community. They say, you know, maybe some nurses can pay for it. But I'm like, nurses make good money, right? I'm like, what are you doing to make sure some people in the neighborhood now can pay for it? What are you doing to make sure that Miss D can stay in her house after you've changed everything up? So the way you stop gentrification, which is another word for displacement, is by not having government actually displace the people themselves. We do not need to be trying to be super aggressive on demolishing homes. I know there's some homes that are raggedy, but if there's a home that can be repaired, we need to spend the same money trying to repair that. You know, it costs about $25,000 to really demolish a house. You put that $25,000 into rehab, particularly putting people from our community to work, and then you get a house out of it. That is changing community dynamics. Instead of just saying, all right, it's a problem that we're not worried about. And then we're worried about weeds and vacant lots and all of that. So for me, I think it's almost simple. Stop doing the bad things that we're doing every day. Start investing in the things that actually help us build community and jobs. And there are a lot of American cities that are doing this, so this just ain't pie in the sky. Okay,
very good. So our brother Chris, hey bro, he has asked, what would you do, what would you say to undecided voters to get them to vote for you?
Well, you know, I think Chris just saw me at the last thing I was at, so I'm like, the same thing, Chris. But what would I say?
Hilarious.
You know, it's after 8 o'clock, like I said. Now, what would I say to the undecided voters? I mean, here's my thing. There's a whole bunch of people that are going to be like, I'm the best, this and that and all that. You got a bunch of smart people. I can tell you probably about 3 or 4 people you shouldn't vote for, but you can figure those out. In terms of like, no, I'm sorry. Yes, you can. Look at my Facebook Live on Hot 103 Jams this morning. But anyway, I'm sorry. I mean that with love. I'm sorry because the general.
I'm calling in with love after 8 o'clock.
Right. The general gonna come after me, but I'm sorry. I'm giving an answer. But what can you to make a difference? Look, I'm substantive, right? I think that policies do make a difference. To me, it's not enough to just say no. You know, you can't just stand against something in government, because if you do that, then they always gonna figure out a way to get around you. And the other thing about the mayor is you're one of 13. right? So how is it that you push an agenda? You push an agenda that gets people walking with you. You push an agenda that gets people saying, okay, because look, everybody who's going to get elected to the council is going to say, we want to fix the east side. And there are going to be a few ways to do it. And there's going to be some developer, probably a white developer, who says, I have the idea. I'm going to build this giant multifamily development. There's going to be $60 million. You're going to have a big fancy ribbon cutting. And it's going to change the face of the neighborhood. Now, you could either just be the councilman or the mayor who's like, no. And everybody's like, well, what you got instead?
Sure.
You always need to have the viable alternative. You always need to have the policy. You always got to have that plan. I have come up with that plan and that policy in so many situations, be it the most substantial incentive reform the city's seen in a generation, be it the most substantial housing policy proposals the city's seen in a generation, or be it picking controversies and fights when we need to against the establishment, against the city manager's office spending millions of dollars that aren't being checked by council, when the business community is saying you can't do that. I'm proud of those. I'm proud to have been a first-term council member who has a ton of successes in doing that, and that's something that I would do as mayor. And I'll say this one other thing too. I have never, throughout my travels, my life, my successes, forgotten where I'm from. I'm proud to be from Kansas City. I'm proud to still be a volunteer at a state prison over in Kansas. I'm proud to still do a lot of the stuff to help my sisters out and their kids every day. You know, I come to these issues because I care about them. This isn't for a job, this isn't for fame, this is because I've been blessed by a lot, and I want to make sure I'm sharing that with my community.
Okay, very good. So you just talked about your sisters.
Yep.
So let's talk about Black women in leadership.
Okay.
Let's talk about, do you have any Black women on your campaign in your senior staff positions now? And what will you do to ensure that Black women have a place at the decision-making table in your administration, your cabinet?
Well, it was interesting. I'm in Shirley's kitchen cabinet, so I have a kitchen cabinet myself.
Okay.
Right? Which has, they may not want me telling you about, but so the short answer is yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, look, you can't win. I don't think you can win this race without not only being able to reach out to Black women, but also having advisors who are Black women.
Okay.
My understanding of what people vote on and what people do is stuck in my own viewpoint and my own perspective. I think it's important for me and anyone to make sure that they have a broader perspective. So that's been a value of mine when I was running for city council, as I'm running right now. And, you know, I probably got 10 phone calls to call back tonight, and a bunch of people who know the community well, particularly women of color. I'll say this too, that one of my disappointments in this election has been that, you know, I think there's some candidates who are running who may have a chance of being mayor who have not reached out to the Black community, and particularly Black women, to the extent they should. That's incredibly disappointing to me. You know, I go to all the other communities, and I think it's upsetting to me that you have some major candidates, some men, who are running races where they think they can avoid our community. That's not right, and that's not something that I think we should stand for. If you want to be mayor of this city, you need to be talking to all of them.
Good. Thank you. So this is Sis Chantel. Hey, Sis. What can be done to combat crime in Kansas City?
Yeah, largely, I mean, I'll go back to kind of my criminal justice reform platform, which is, one, you need to create incentives for people not to be in crime. You need to create opportunities for them. If you've got warrants that are holding them back, if you've got, you know, probation that lasts for 2 years on something, then yes, that will hold somebody back. And so the first thing I think we need to do are remove the vestiges of so many systemic issues that are keeping people in the system, frankly. That's a step one. I think a step two is we need to see policing more as not just bringing in like this armada of police officers to investigate things from an outsider perspective, but to me, what you need to do is actually invest in what is the presence of our city and neighborhoods, the positive presence in neighborhoods, right? So what are we doing to invest in our community centers, summer activities, job creation for young and old people, right? And what are we doing to make sure that to the extent one needs to interact with the criminal justice system, we're relying more on social workers than we are relying on, you know, police officers that just knocking on your door, right? I'm an attorney, but if a police officer knocks on my door tonight, I'll be like, whoa, what's going on? Now imagine if I was not an attorney, I was younger and all that sort of stuff. That creates a whole different vibe. And I think what we can do to have more to help our crime issues is actually having a more positive relationship in our community that's trying to say we are addressing crime from the core foundational issues, rather than just trying to say, let's throw more people in the rackety Jackson County Jail.
Rackety Jackson County Jail. You heard it live here
right.
at Shirley's Kitchen
And you know,
Cabinet.
I'm gonna tell you this: we need to incarcerate fewer people for municipal ordinance violations. We're doing too much of that too. I think if you stop doing that, you're letting people actually have jobs and stay and produce. So many people lose their job because they're in jail for 2 nights, right? That holds so many people back. And if you keep losing your job, then you're gonna stop trying to have a job. And if you're gonna stop trying to have a job, you're gonna get money from somewhere. And then you're gonna pick up a gun because, you know what, that's kind of part of everything. I mean, it all makes sense. And I'm like, y'all, stop that at the first step. That's what we have to do.
Okay, so. Very good. No, we like that impassioned aspect of you. So you are, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong,
yes, ma'am,
the only candidate that has a racial platform that's built into your campaign. So please talk a little bit about that. Talk about some of the things I'm seeing here. Eliminate jail time, you've already talked about. The Kansas City, Missouri Municipal ID card for folks with immigration status.
That's right.
You've also talked about decriminalizing mental health and addiction issues.
That's right.
So please speak to some of those things.
Yeah, so, you know, as I was thinking about, first of all, these are things that I've had in my mind forever, right? Because from the moment I was running for city council, I remember I was talking to my predecessor, and there was something that was coming up, and she was like, yeah, we're voting on something that's going to criminalize, you know, whatever. And then I told her, I was like, no, but this is just going to end up getting people who are sitting at the bus stop every day arrested more often. And she was like, yeah, that don't sound right. And I realized every few weeks at city council, we're getting some new proposal that is looking to actually criminalize more conduct in our city. And I'm not saying I like people that are doing all types of crazy things, but some people, you don't need to be in jail for everything, right? In some situations, if you're somebody who, for example, has a bunch of parking tickets, yeah, you need to obey the parking laws, but you don't need to be in jail, particularly if you're trying to take care of your family. Part of the reason is because you can't find a parking spot downtown. And so the reason, and I presented it this way, an economic and racial justice platform, because first of all, nobody knows what social justice even means anymore. Some people, social justice means this or that or whatever. What I want is people to have more money at the economic side or have opportunities to make money. But then racial justice recognizes that by far and disproportionately, and I say this as somebody who has worked in prisons, I've taught, right? I mean, I've represented people in all types of interesting situations. Go to municipal court tomorrow. The disproportionate number of people who are Black or Latino or Latina, right, in that system, when you look at the percentages in this city, is completely off kilter. And are you telling me that those are the only people who smoke weed in the city? Or they're the only ones that do any number, or park in the wrong spot, or speed in the wrong spot? No. That's why this is actually about racial justice, because we spend so much time in our city and in our country talking about, oh yes, we want to address the disparities. Well, we can do it. We can do it at the local level. Don't talk about Trump. Don't talk about whatever happens in Jeff City. I'm worried about Jeff City, right? Kansas City can make changes tomorrow that improve the quality of life for Kansas Cityans. And there's nothing that holds us back on that. And that's why, yeah, it's a key part of my platform, because that's what I think a mayor is supposed to do.
So I hear you talking about the intersection of race and class, the intersection of race and access, all of these different things. So in these last couple of minutes that we have, share out to that voter who is saying, I really want to vote for you, Councilman Lucas. Now, why should I?
You know, what I'll say to them is this. You want somebody with passion. A lot of us have passion. But you also want somebody who, we're not just using buzzwords in my campaign, right? I will make systematic change that you can measure in the first 90 days. Okay. No mayor in America has done what I'm proposing with marijuana, standalone marijuana convictions. I think that's key. I think that can have a huge impact on giving people a second lease of life. And frankly, I think it can tell them, wow, I have a city that actually cares about opportunity for me. It's not just trying to keep me down. I think when you talk about housing, you want somebody who's talking about housing not just in how do we get money, right? Instead, how are we actually building community? How are we doing development in a brand new way? I am transformative, I'm active, I'm passionate, and more than anything, I come at this from my heart and I care. You know, I joke with my mom because she's like, I don't know why you're doing this when you could be a lawyer making money or something. And I tell her that it's because I don't want my blessings to stop at me doing well. I think, you know, I guess it is a calling. And for me, it's this calling to try to improve my community every day in the most impactful ways I can. I've shown that leadership during my 4 years on city council. I've been able to get compromise from around the districts, and I will be able to be a mayor who actually gets these things done when I'm in office and is getting people to come along with me.
Thank you so much. We want to make sure that you center the issues of Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet. Remember, amplifying and helping to give power to Black women in our city. We thank you so much for being here. We were going to talk about you if you didn't get here, so I'm glad you got here.
I'm glad I got here.
I'm glad you got here. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you so much. It's good to be with
Yep.
y'all. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.